What if I told you there's a country that hasn't fought a war in more than 2 centuries, yet somehow it produces some of the most successful companies in the world, ranks among the happiest nations on Earth, and still struggles with problems most outsiders never hear about? That country is Sweden. On the surface, many call it a utopia, a land of peace, stability, and prosperity. But if you look closer, you'll see a place full of contrasts: low birth rates but long life expectancy, incredible natural beauty but dark, freezing winters, a tradition of welcoming outsiders but rising debates on immigration. Stick with me, because by the end of this video you might be asking yourself, is Sweden really the modern-day utopia people believe? Or is there more beneath the surface? And before we dive in, let me know in the comments, would you ever consider living in Sweden if you had the chance? Sweden has built its entire modern identity on one remarkable fact. It hasn't been involved in a war since 1814. That's over 200 years of staying out of major global conflicts, even while neighboring countries fought bloody battles. This wasn't by accident. Sweden embraced neutrality, deliberately keeping out of wars that devastated Europe. That reputation for peace still shapes how the world views Sweden today: calm, safe, and politically stable. But here's the thing: being peaceful doesn't mean being boring. In fact, this neutrality gave Sweden a chance to focus inward, developing its society, economy, and culture while much of Europe was rebuilding after destruction. And yet peace is just the beginning of the story, because once you look at the people and how they live, things get even more fascinating. Quick break. If you've watched this far, drop a peaceful in the comments so I know you're here for the full story. With a population of just about 10 million people, Sweden is smaller than some US states, yet its global influence is massive. The capital, Stockholm, is home to around 1.6 million people. It's built across 14 islands, connected by over 50 bridges, giving the city a unique blend of history, modern design, and water views at nearly every turn. Göteborg, or Gothenburg, sits on the country's west coast and is known for its port, industry, and a reputation as Sweden's friendliest city. Malmö, on the other hand, sits closer to Denmark and has become one of the most diverse cities in the country. Sweden also faces a unique demographic challenge. People live longer than almost anywhere else in the world, but they're also having fewer children. With a fertility rate of about 1.5 children per woman, Sweden is below the level needed to maintain its population naturally. Yet, people in Sweden can expect to live into their 80s, one of the highest life expectancies on the planet. So here's a question for you. Would you rather live in a crowded megacity like New York or Tokyo, or in a smaller but highly organized city like Stockholm or Gothenburg? Let me know down below. If you really want to understand Sweden, you need to look at its culture. The official language, Swedish, comes from the Germanic family and has been the mother tongue for nearly everyone in the country. But here's something interesting. While most Swedes still speak Swedish daily, almost everyone also speaks English fluently. That makes Sweden one of the easiest European countries for outsiders to adapt to. Religion once played a much bigger role. Nearly 90% of native Swedes were historically part of the Church of Sweden, a Lutheran tradition that shaped much of the country's history and holidays. For centuries, the church was the state religion. Today, though, Sweden is considered one of the most secular countries in the world. Religion is less dominant in daily life, but cultural traditions, like celebrating midsummer with flower crowns and maypoles, remain deeply rooted. Swedish identity is often tied less to religion and more to shared values: equality, social responsibility, and respect for personal space. It's a society where people value independence but also trust that their government will provide strong social support systems. But the truth is, Sweden's culture isn't just about Swedes. Immigration and diversity have reshaped its identity in surprising ways. And that's where things start to get complicated. Quick pause. If you've ever celebrated something like midsummer or a cultural holiday in your own country, tell me which one in the comments. I'd love to see the different traditions. Today, about 18% of Sweden's residents are foreign-born or have at least one parent from another country. That's nearly 1 out of every 5 people. Some of the most notable minority groups include the Finnish-speaking population along the northeast border, around 30,000 people, and the indigenous Sami, who number about 17,000 in Sweden, but around 50,000 to 60,000 across Scandinavia and Russia. In recent decades, Sweden became known for its openness to refugees and immigrants, especially during times of crisis in the Middle East and Africa. Cities like Malmö saw rapid demographic changes, bringing new cultures, foods, and traditions into Swedish society. But not everyone views this as positive. Immigration has become one of the most debated political issues in Sweden, with some arguing it strengthens the nation and others worried it challenges traditional Swedish culture. So let me ask you, do you think immigration makes a country stronger, or does it create more division? Share your thoughts in the comments, because this is one of those debates that doesn't have a simple answer. And while immigration reshaped modern Sweden, another force, nature itself, has always defined the Swedish lifestyle. Sweden is often described as a land of extremes. In summer, the sun barely sets in the north, while in winter, darkness can last for months. Yet these conditions created a culture deeply connected to nature. The country has over 100,000 lakes and nearly 1,700 miles of coastline. Many Swedes own or rent small summer houses near water, and boating is almost a national hobby. Hiking, skiing, ice skating, and even wild foraging for berries and mushrooms are common pastimes. The famous Allemansrätten, or right to roam, allows anyone to freely explore nature, camp, walk, or pick berries, almost anywhere in the country, as long as they respect the land. This connection to nature is one reason Sweden consistently ranks high in happiness and quality of life surveys. People genuinely feel they have access to balance, work, leisure, and the great outdoors. But while the lifestyle seems idyllic, Sweden also faces challenges that go far beyond nature. If you're watching this in a city where nature feels far away, comment nature down below. I want to see how many of you crave the Swedish outdoor life. For a country with a relatively small population, Sweden has produced a shocking number of global companies. IKEA, Spotify, Volvo, Ericsson, H&M, all Swedish. This didn't happen by chance. Sweden built an economy based on innovation, education, and trust in institutions. With strong social programs like free education and healthcare, people had more freedom to take risks, start companies, and innovate. Taxes are high, but many Swedes accept this because they see what they get in return: infrastructure, healthcare, childcare, and social security. It's a trade-off that outsiders often find surprising, but for Swedes, it's simply the way their society functions. But even this perfect model has cracks. High housing costs, debates about taxation, and challenges in integrating newcomers into the economy are constant talking points. Still, there's no denying that Sweden punches far above its weight when it comes to influence. So here's a thought. If you had free healthcare and free education like in Sweden, what would you do with the money you'd save? Travel more? Start a business? Drop your answer below. Now, here's where things get really interesting. For all of Sweden's reputation as a peaceful utopia, it's not without its flaws. The low birth rate has experts worried about the future workforce. Immigration debates continue to split politics. And while Sweden ranks high in equality, critics say bureaucracy and high taxes sometimes slow down progress. There are also concerns about housing shortages, with demand in cities like Stockholm driving up prices to levels many young people can't afford. And the famous Swedish lagom, a cultural idea of moderation and balance, can sometimes clash with the realities of globalization and fast-changing cultural influences. In other words, the utopia image is real in some ways, but also an oversimplification. If you've made it this far, comment "real talk" below so I know you're catching the full picture. Globally, Sweden is admired as a model nation, peaceful, equal, innovative, environmentally conscious. It consistently ranks near the top of international comparisons. But to those who live there, Sweden is a real country with real challenges. It's not just the land of IKEA furniture and ABBA songs. It's a society juggling tradition, modern innovation, immigration, and an uncertain future. So maybe the better question isn't whether Sweden is a utopia, but whether it's proof that no country is perfect, and every model nation has its contradictions. What do you think? Is Sweden really the closest thing to a modern utopia, or is it more complicated than that? Drop your answer below. I'm really curious to see where you stand after hearing all of this. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who dreams about moving to Scandinavia. Who knows? Maybe they'll change their mind.